Thank you all for joining us today. The first day of Commons Giving Day gives us a bit of a chance to talk a little bit about the Ackerman Center, which I always enjoy. So any day for that is good, but today in particular gives us a chance really to talk about opportunities to give and to participate, but also really to talk about all the generosity that has already been part and parcel of the making of our center. So I'll be moving through a couple of slides, and then I have, this is me again, and then we have a couple of others who are also going to participate. So I think, first of all, just to remind you all what the Ackerman Center is about, Cindy, we are, building ourselves around three pillars, so to speak. Teaching, which is our bread and butter. Research, something that we do individually as far as faculty is concerned, but also collaboratively with our students. And then obviously in the widest context, outreach, community engagement, scholarly events, conferences, workshops, and the likes. So these three things, teaching, research, and outreach, are all equally important to the kind of success of the center, and have obviously existed in different balances to each other. But I think it's one of our big accomplishments that even in the last 2 years, we've maintained actually all three areas and continue to grow each one in their own ways. Cindy? Big change occurred in the midst of all of that, and that, I think, in lots of ways reflected the shifting interest in our student population. Historically, we had always offered a graduate certificate in Holocaust studies, but over a year ago, faculty came together and engaged in a larger conversation, first amongst themselves, then in response to our students, and then last but not least with our various friends and community leaders, until we decided to make a really significant change to our certificate, not just in name, but also in content. It is now a certificate in Holocaust, Genocide, and Human Rights Studies, which required us really to also revisit the core of what we're teaching on the graduate classes, so that students have now opportunities to learn, first and foremost, obviously, about the Holocaust, but also to engage it from a comparative perspective of other genocides and other human rights issues. That immediately resulted also for us, as you will know, in a new hiring kind of priorities in terms of looking now for the type of talents that would allow us to deliver actually this increasingly more varied and complex new certificate. One other big change that you can see at the bottom now is both degrees are now also open to non-degree seeking students. And we are really right now at the beginning of trying to market that. What that means in its technical terms is that students now who are not enrolled at UT Dallas, but who may have already MAs from other institutions, can enroll in the certificate and just take these 5 classes without having to enroll first again in a fully, size MA or PhD program. They can just really simply go and enroll for the certificate. All right, Cindy. So part of what we've been working on, and in many ways, there has been, challenges and opportunities during the pandemic. But one of the kind of challenges turned into an opportunity, and that was our inability to kind of host in-person events meant that we hosted more and more online events, which really significantly increased our global audience. Here's a kind of mapping of the world in terms of where respectively audiences have come from to our various events. You can see that there are still some white spots out there that we're trying to get, but in many ways, the Ackerman Center, but this is not any longer a locally recognized center or a nationally known entity, but very much has become an internationally operating research center. Cindy? And then last but not least, I enjoy it. I love doing this. It's one of those things that is about research. It's about engagement. It's about teaching. It's all of those three things together. And that is the creation of our podcasts. I always enjoy doing them, but also enjoy doing them because they are truly produced by us. In this case, it doesn't mean me, but actually by far more talented individuals, our students. And we use some of them for community engagement. We use some of them also for teaching. And they are therefore really part and parcel of the kind of 3 pillars: teaching, research, and outreach. And if you haven't followed them, you've been missing out on something. Follow any one of the links here or elsewhere. And you have a little bit of catching up to do because there are, I think, 15 or 20 different podcasts probably out there that you can kind of tune in on as you're walking, talking, or doing all kinds of other things. Cindy? But even at this late stage of the semester, and we're all kind of looking toward the end of it at the beginning of May, there's still a lot more to come. Here's a list of upcoming events just within the next 2 to 3.5 weeks that we are still going to host. We're finishing out our very significant spring lectures with a lecture by Dr. Pedro Gonzalez Corona, who will be speaking in a moment. And then obviously we're going to host again our traditional Holocaust Remembrance Day on April 28th, followed by one more lecture presented by Lucy Adlington on May 22nd. So there's still, in other words, quite a bit of things to come even in this semester. Cindy? There's more apparently, because apparently we don't even stop over the summer when normally most of us go on vacation, but over the summer we get really busy with our annual Teachers Institute, something that Dr. Pfister has been organizing now for many, many years. This time you see proudly in parentheses how it says in person. We'll be hosting this once again. This is an opportunity for us always to bring about 70 to 80 middle and mostly high school teachers together on campus. They're with us for a day and have an opportunity really to learn from us together with invited speakers about most recent scholarship and on the Holocaust. So in order to enable them really to do a good job teaching in their respective schools. And then June 26th to 28th, you can join us still. We are co-presenting a big conference on genocide studies in Mexico City with various partners. So this is another one of these markers of where we now not just only have our annual conference, the annual Scholars Conference, but really also partner up here and there with other organizations to organize international conferences. Great way to increase the visibility of the center and to be really partner of important conversations around the globe. Cindy? Haha, and this is my coffee break. I'm handing over to Dr. Pedro Gonzalez Corona, the Assistant Director of the Ackerman Center. There he is.
Thank you so much, Dr. Romer. Good morning, everyone. I'm Pedro Gonzalez Corona, Assistant to the Director and Assistant Professor of Instruction. My duties in the center can be divided into big fields, teaching, particularly undergraduate and graduate courses on Holocaust and human rights. Lately, I've been coordinated also the development of a new course on the Holocaust. This new course is going to be completely online. I also dedicate a great deal of my time to promote the vision of the center by engaging in outreach at local and international levels. I also maintain the existing international collaborations and create new collaboration projects. Part of my research interest and current projects are based on research that I do on anti-Semitism in Latin America and Holocaust distortion and denial. I also work in forced disappearances in Mexico. As part of this research, I'm also a fellow at the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy, and I also belong to a fellowship at Columbia University. And of course, these fellowships produce a lot of opportunities to lecture and to create new collaborations. Cindy, please, next slide. So like Dr. Romer mentioned, the visibility at international levels is very important for us. On your left-hand side, you see the Museum of Memory and Tolerance in Mexico City. They're going to be our main partners in the organization of the International Conference of Genocide Scholars. That's going to be the 8th year that they organize this conference. We also have collaborations in Puebla with the University of Puebla in Mexico, with the Human Rights Commission in Guatemala, and other museums on human rights and Holocaust, like the one in Chile, the one in Argentina, and also we have new collaborations with the University of Oaxaca. And this year we started conversations and talks with the Monterrey Institute of Technology, one of the largest private organizations in Mexico. So we're really proud and we're really looking forward to working with these new partners in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Then that brings us to our next distinguished speaker, but you can already see with Pedro Gonzalez also came an opportunity really to enhance our offerings on human rights. And with our next awesome hire that we succeeded in, also increased our ability to engage visual studies, but also to increase our ability to teach on the visual representation of the Holocaust and other genocides. So it's my great pleasure now to introduce Dr. Emily Rose Baker, our visiting assistant professor, who is supported by the Miriam Louise Burnett Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Roma. Cindy, could you go to the next slide, please? So hi everyone, good morning. I'm Dr. Emily Rose Baker, as Dr. Roma just said. I'm teaching in film studies. So again, as Dr. Roma just said, my teaching and research is really focused on visual cultures of the Holocaust and the genocide. So they make up my main focus teaching. I've been teaching undergrad and graduate courses over the last year, focusing on the Holocaust and genocide on screen, but touching on other types of atrocity as well. One of the things that I most enjoy doing with my students, but also for the public, is organising film screenings. And so I organised a couple of those this year, including those commemorating Holocaust Remembrance Day and the Day of No Violence Against Women as well. Earlier this year, I co-organised a 3-day online conference on space in Holocaust memory and representation, which dealt with the expanding field of space in Holocaust memory and representation, the mapping of the Holocaust, the geographical specificity of the Holocaust, which was an international conference and was very well attended. So I really enjoyed co-organising that. I've also participated in and co-hosted several of the Ackerman Center podcasts, which have really been a joy to participate in, including one most recently on Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine. So again, just to plug that to everybody who hasn't tuned in already. Another thing I'm really excited about this year is a new project that I've started in collaboration with Dr. Pfister and on which Angie Simmons here, research assistant, is helping with as well, is a project to build a repository of Holocaust and genocide films for the Ackerman Center. So we're going to be working with undergrad and graduate students to locate, license and write articles for as many different Holocaust and genocide films as we can find. We're going to build a website or webpage rather that's adjacent to the Ackerman Center website, which we hope will serve as a very useful resource to future students and members of the public as well. And finally, in terms of my research output this year, I've presented at multiple conferences, including the annual Scholars Conference, which was really exciting to be part of. And excitingly, although it's taking a lot of work, I'm also working on my first monograph, which is based on my PhD research in post-communist cultures of Holocaust remembrance. So that's me. Thank you.
Thank you. Then I think this brings it back to me again. We're just trying to make use of our fancy camera, switching around. It's really time to get us going with the comment given day. So I've been just given this small sign to hold up and to talk about investing in the future and our gift announcement. I talked earlier about the 3 pillars. I talked about teaching, research, and community outreach. And I think those 3 things are critical to what we do. There are 3 others that are critical to allowing us to do these things and have all along been part of building this fantastic center. And those are obviously at the center, the faculty, starting with our founding director, Zsuzsanna Ashvat, the tremendous support that early on, the first Holocaust studies initiatives received from the university. So the kind of strong support from the university that continues to be part and parcel of this constant growth of the center. And then thirdly, the community support. So in many ways, the center wouldn't be thriving as much as it has if it wouldn't be really for this unique coming together of community, faculty, and the university, all kind of together investing in the future of this center. So I want to talk a little bit about what that has meant over the years, and then in particular highlight two bigger gift announcements that I would like to make, but also illustrate a little bit where they came from. Cindy? So one of the things really that has been critical over the years in our fundraising initiatives is to raise money to support our students. One of the things that we recognized very early on was that we had an unusual amount of really talented students around, but that we needed to create opportunities for them really to excel. And therefore, we created a number of different fellowships and research funds. Here you see the list of them. Some of them provide smaller stipends. Others offer opportunities for students to be supported in their research, meaning to go to conferences, to go and do research in other places. And then others are creating more lasting fellowships like the Selvin Belowski Fellows. We have two of them actually here. One of them you already seen earlier, Angie. I think we're just moving. And then the other one is Katie Fisher. We can't show her right now because then the whole production scheme breaks down because she's actually producing it. But in other words, support for our student has been critical in our various fundraising opportunities, and we've been fortunate to entice a good many close friends to kind of come along on this and to really enable us to provide this critical help to our students, who then also really have opportunity to go to conferences, present their work, meet with their peers, and also to network themselves, in the kind of context of their respective areas of research. Right, Cindy? Many of our students, though, have now the opportunity to kind of get their first steps in research and kind of scholarly presentations really quite literally here at home, with us, now annually hosting the annual Scholars Conference on the Holocaust and its churches. And again, this would not have been possible for us to do if it wouldn't have been for the generous support of various individuals from the community that have allowed us to create endowments for lectures, but also every year support us in doing this conference, so that we can also again offer, for example, support to some of our junior scholars, where we can sometimes help them, offsetting some of the costs that are involved with going to a conference and with other things like that. All right, Cindy. Another big and significant part of enticing individuals into thinking generously about us is to help us with our library. We are in lots of ways a young institution. The university is a little over 50 years old. The center itself, as a center, is much younger, but obviously the Holocaust Studies program is a little bit older. But all of that means that nobody collected around here books in the 50s or the 60s or the 70s. A lot of our libraries started to be collected more in the 80s and 90s. And we therefore were particularly thrilled when we had the opportunity to acquire as a donation the Franklin Littell, the Mosley Littell collection, which added on roughly another 4,000 books to our collection, and more importantly, filled some critical holes in our collection. Along with it came also two beautiful sculptures that nowadays you can see in the center. Cindy? Let me highlight now, as we're going to emphasize, two gifts in particular, a little bit what I think is part and parcel of this tremendous success story that the Ackerman Center has been able to put together. And that is, we are not just simply thriving on individuals who kind of are generous, but that have shown a long-term commitment to the university and to the study of our center. And I think Stephen Gundy, again, himself is a graduate from UTD in 1999, he just slipped in just at the end of the 2000, has been now highly supportive in many ways for the center in 2017 to 19, and then also in 2018, actually, when he joined the board as well. So he and his family have been given on numerous occasions, but have now also created, if we can move forward in 21, the Richard Gundy Family Endowment, which came along with $100,000 to endow this. There it is. See, I preempted this. 100,000, which is a very significant endowment that allows now to create and enhance the work of the center, in particular as we're widening our mission. This is now the big challenge. Adding on genocide and human rights studies is really significantly widening our mission, but it also means now for all three things, for teaching, for research, and for outreach, we need to kind of make sure that we can meet now in terms of our readiness and our expertise and put together things for Holocaust, genocide, and human rights. And therefore, this new endowment is really helping us to get closer into this, as well as helping us to convert some of our classes into online classes. I mean, this is the other big lesson that we learned over the last 2 years, that there is really a market and opportunity for either hybrid classes or also for fully online classes. And we've heard about some of them a little earlier. All right. And then there's, of course, the Ackerman family itself. We obviously proudly carry their name. Everything began with Ed Ackerman and an early endowment into the center that really resulted in the creation of the center and its physical space. That mission of building and supporting the center has then been taken over by the Ackerman family that you can see in the right picture, that continues to be highly supportive of the Ackerman Center in numerous ways. And here you can kind of see that the first gift really to the Holocaust Studies program came in 1993. So this is like, you know, spanning generations in one family now that has dedicated themselves to be supportive of us. And 2011 comes the Holocaust Studies from the American perspective, another major endowment. 2017, David Ackerman becomes chairman of the advisory board. 2019, the inaugural Ackerman Gala Award that in a very timely manner honored back then Hobson Wilmenthal, who in many ways, as I said, represented that strong support coming from the university over the years, and therefore was a very befitting recipient of that first leadership award. Cindy? And then comes where we are today in 2022, the Edward Wilhelmina Ackerman Foundation announces another lead gift for the Ackerman Center that breaks down into, I think it's on the next slide, so that makes it easier to follow. It is a total of 1.1 million. This is a tremendous boost to really the center. What that means, you know, if there was a time when I started to appreciate these endowments in particular, then it was over the last 2 years, where the endowments, you know, allowed us to continue to work regardless of how otherwise at times the university's finances were squeezed and seemed a little bit more uncertain. But this is a major boost really into the very endowment that supports all of our activities. So yes, we have endowments to support students, we have endowments for lecturers, we have endowments that support the individual research of individual faculty, but there's the one that really is the most critical of all of them, and that's the Ackerman Center Endowment, because that is, so to speak, where our operational money comes from. This is what allows us to host events, this is what allows us to follow new initiatives, this is the endowment that allows us to build new international relationships, because it is there, and it's the beauty of that gift that keeps giving, because it's an endowment that generates every year substantial amount of our budget. So this in particular breaks down into 3 components, 500,000 that were given to the Ackerman Center in order to enhance really the existing Ackerman Center endowment. 500,000 as a technology grant to support now our new initiatives in online education. And then another 100,000 to allow us to do another gala award dinner at some point when we decide again that it's time for us to do something in person. Having that gift will allow us to do something that is almost unprecedented, which means we can host a gala, award an individual, use the fundraising that comes along with it, and will not have to worry about it costing us any money, because the generosity has already covered all of the expenses. That means we can go to our donors and tell them that 100% of the money that they will give is toward the cost. And it's not, anything that will, be used to finance the evening. And that allowed us, to be tremendously successful when we hosted it for the first time in 2019. So this is a huge investment into the Ackerman Center, but also I think a big sign of faith and commitment into the center as we're transitioning and growing again in many ways. And to have that support from the family that has been with us really for all these years means a lot to us. Thank you. All right, then we are moving to our final parts. Over the last 5 years, donor participation has reached new heights. This is where I show my little sign again. Comments Given Day is very much about raising money, but it's also about focusing attention on the things that matter to us and kind of getting everyone involved and getting everyone excited. So it is an opportunity for us to make the bigger announcements of the big gifts, but it's really also driven throughout the next 2 days, today and tomorrow, by a desire to get as many people involved into giving, whether it's $2, $5, $10, $20, it really doesn't matter, because it is also a way to demonstrate how much the center means to so many community friends, as well as to staff, student, and faculty. All of this this year will once again be made much more exciting, because we have an exciting matching gift that once again comes from Terry and Beth Romberg of up to a total of $5,000. So that in lots of ways means whatever you give will be so much better, because there's already a matching involved as well. So we're really excited. We're going to spend a lot of time over the next 2 days, today and tomorrow, to keep reminding everyone about how important the center is. The whole university is involved in this process. All of them will constantly keep an eye out on where respectively the donations are coming in. But it's probably fair to say that we have a good starting point with our 2 lead gifts that we've already announced into the race over the next 2 days. So thank you all for joining us here today. Cindy, let's see what comes next. It's the end of the slideshow. I thought so. If we can just zoom back one more time, the camera, because now I'm looking awfully tall at somehow. Let me just, yes, here you can see one more time the team again, all of us being here. Again, on our Holly, I think nobody sees you really. If you see the waving hand, Holly Miori, our fundraiser. You see all the way to the end of the table, Dr. Pfister.
Yeah.
Got to do a big wave, that counts. All right, and then again, Angie, one of our Belosky fellows, Emily Baker, you heard her already, and then Dr. Pedro Gonzalez. One more waving. Anyone waving on the left side? Katie, now you can come into the picture. You have to, there she is. Katie is the producer, not just of today, but also of many other things that we're putting together. So thank you again all for joining today, and be with us over the next 2 days. Hopefully we can once again have a very successful Comments Giving Day, and hope to see you all soon on campus, actually in person again, and welcome you to any of our upcoming events. Thank you all again for being with us.
Bye.
Bye.